On a packed New York subway, Dr. Henry Morgan sits quietly, charming a fellow passenger with his sharp wit and almost supernatural powers of observation. Just as he's about to ask her out, a second train barrels into theirs. The impact is devastating. Screams, metal screeching, bodies thrown like rag dolls. Henry is impaled on a steel rod, his vision blurring. His pocket watch falls to the floor, glinting in the chaos. He reaches for it, but death claims him before his fingers touch the chain. His story began 200 years ago, when he was a young doctor aboard a slave ship. One night, he tried to save an enslaved man with a mild fever, knowing rest would cure him. But the ship's owners feared cholera and demanded the man be thrown overboard. Henry refused. They shot him and cast his body into the sea. Instead of sinking into oblivion, Henry awoke, gasping, in the water. After the subway crash, he surfaces in the East River to the horrified stares of strangers. The police arrest him for indecent exposure, and after a frustrating release, he returns to the antique shop he calls home. At the same time, Detective Jo Martinez begins investigating the crash. She finds Henry's distinctive pocket watch at the scene. Later, at the city morgue where Henry works as a pathologist, Jo seeks an update on the victims. With casual precision, moments later, his examination reveals a chilling truth. The train driver was poisoned. Then comes the phone call. A man's voice, deep and calm, says he saw Henry survive the crash. Before Henry can speak, the caller hangs up. Soon after, an envelope arrives. Inside, an old photograph of Henry and his late wife Abigail from 1955. A woman who once believed his immortality was meant for a greater purpose. Alongside it, a newspaper article about the crash and a note that makes Henry suspect the caller orchestrated the disaster to prove his theory. The trail leads Henry and Jo to a man named Hans, whose wife was killed in a previous subway incident caused by the same driver. They discover Hans has been cultivating aconite, a deadly toxin. When Jo tries to arrest him, he throws a vial of poison at her. The aconite burns into her skin, but Henry saves her by setting it aflame to neutralize it. They soon realize Hans plans to unleash the poison on Grand Central Station through the ventilation system. On the rooftop, Hans sees them first and shoots Jo. Henry lunges, wrestling him, both men tumbling from the roof. The fall kills them instantly. Hours later, Jo wakes in a hospital bed to find Henry by her side. She swears she saw him fall. He smiles faintly, assuring her that's impossible. But the mysterious caller isn't done. He phones again, telling Henry they share the same curse, and he's looking for a way to end it for them both. Not long after, Henry is called to another case. Vicky, a young woman found dead beneath a bridge. The police mark it as suicide, but Henry's eyes catch what others miss: the fractures, the defensive wounds. She fought to live. Visiting the scene, he finds marks on the bridge, signs of a struggle, and nearly falls to his own death when a truck strikes him. The river claims him again, and again. He returns. Clues lead Henry and Jo to Vicky's professor, James, with whom she had an affair. Evidence under her nails points to him, but Henry's sharp deductions soon prove James is innocent. The real killer remains at large, and in the shadows, the man who knows Henry's secret continues to watch. The police still think James is guilty and arrest him, but Abe has been quietly digging into the mysterious letter Henry received. He discovers the crest on the paper belongs to a long-gone Italian hotel, one Henry remembers vividly. He once stayed there when he tried to leave Abigail for her own good. Henry re-examines Vicky's body and discovers flesh in her mouth. She bit her attacker. Before he can act, Jo bursts in with news. James is dead in his office. The cops call it suicide, but Henry sees the truth in a few scattered details. James was murdered. While the police target his wife, Henry tracks down a student whose name he saw in James's papers. The young man's hand is bandaged, right where Vicky's bite would be. It turns out he'd been helping James and Vicky on a research paper, only to be cut out of the credit. Furious, he killed them both. When he takes Henry hostage, security cameras catch everything. Jo and her team corner him, a single gunshot to the shoulder ending the standoff. That night, Henry gets another call from the stalker. This time, the man gives his name, Adam. He claims to be 2,000 years old, 10 times Henry's age. The revelation shakes Henry, who soon buries himself in a morbid project, cataloging every death he's endured, noting that some take longer to come back from than others. Abe grows angry, hating to see Henry so obsessed with ending his curse, while he himself is aging and fears leaving Henry alone. Soon, a new body arrives at the morgue. Bill, a 67-year-old who died chasing down a thief. His physique is remarkably youthful, but his brain shows the wear of age and disease. Henry finds a strange liquid in his stomach. No food, no drink. The cause of death is clear: poison. The trail leads Henry and Jo to Chinatown, where they spot an out-of-place, elegantly dressed woman entering a building marked with a symbol from Bill's briefcase. Inside is Eterna, a high-end clinic run by Dr. Gardner. He claims his supplement makes people feel young again but won't hand over a sample without a warrant. Henry, suspecting a fraud, accidentally bumps into a patient to steal hers, and Joe secures Gardner's fingerprints. Tests reveal Eterna is laced with prion from infected human brain tissue. The source? 12 missing corpses from the morgue. An ambulance driver confesses to distributing Eterna, but he lacks the skill to make it. Then comes the shock. Abe's name is on the clinic's client list. Abe admits he never took it. He just wanted to be sure Henry would be cared for after he was gone. He describes the real chemist, who turns out to be Gardner's girlfriend and the sister of a morgue employee. When Henry confronts her, she insists she never meant to harm anyone. Gardner forced her hand. With the case closed, the guilt-ridden chemist disappears into custody. Not long after, tragedy strikes again. Gloria, a wealthy socialite known for her sharp tongue, is found dead at a museum gala. Lucas is covering for Henry at the morgue and accidentally leaks to the press that it's murder. The family is furious, so Henry takes the blame and is removed from the case, though Joe keeps him in the loop. Retracing Gloria's last steps through the museum, Henry concludes she was pushed down the stairs, then tried to crawl away. Security footage shows a man named Lance, who claims he wanted to marry Gloria's granddaughter and had her blessing. But Gloria's uncharacteristic kindness and recent strange behavior point Henry toward a medical cause. He suspects a stroke but can't examine the body until Lucas, guilt-ridden, sneaks a sample of her liver from the funeral home. The results confirm Henry's hunch. Gloria was poisoned with a medication used to treat epilepsy. The suspect? Her son Conrad, who was already cut out of her will and had every reason to resent her. But proving it will require a final piece of evidence Henry is determined to find. The investigation into Gloria's death takes a sharp turn when the only person with her in her final hours, her nurse, is revealed to have inherited Gloria's fortune. While the police question her, Henry and Joe search Gloria's room. In the ashes of the fireplace, they find the remains of a burned letter and notice a missing champagne glass. Odd, since Gloria never drank. A few pointed questions reveal the truth. Gloria, terminally ill, took medication to end her life, but the meal she ate sped up the effects, causing her to collapse sooner than intended. She crawled to die before a painting by an old lover, the sender of the burned letter. With the case closed, Joe shares a story about her late husband, and Henry confesses the museum unsettled him. It was where he proposed to Abigail. Not long after, a woman leaving a hotel is attacked in the shadows. The next morning, the police receive a blood-soaked box containing a human heart. Henry determines it belonged to a woman who was alive when it was removed. Cross-checking missing persons, he concludes the victim was likely a night worker, a deduction that stirs memories of his time investigating Jack the Ripper's murders in the 19th century. At the hotel, Henry spots a blind corner where someone could drag a body unseen. Nearby, a meat factory yields the woman's corpse, displayed with eerie precision to mimic the Ripper's work. Then, Adam calls. A siren wails in the background, and outside Henry's own window, he rushes out but finds only a discarded phone. Could Adam be the Ripper himself? Henry traces the killer's blade to a rare antique surgical knife. The trail leads to a Japanese dealer's contact book, but before Henry can act, he spots an error. The killer copied the newspaper's version of the Ripper wounds, not the real ones. This is a copycat. At the library, Henry and Joe find a man who'd checked out multiple books on famous murders. When they confront him, he runs, dropping a bag containing the knife. Adam calls again from the latest crime scene, hinting the killer is copying not just Jack the Ripper but multiple infamous murderers. Soon, another body is found, posed exactly like the Black Dahlia. A clue points toward the Boston Strangler as the killer's next inspiration. The trail leads to a Brooklyn teen named Devin. His arrogance crumbles when Henry learns the rare blade was bought by his father. Confronting the man ends in violence. Henry is stabbed, and the dealer he's speaking with is taken hostage. Joe arrives in time to shoot the man, but in the chaos, Adam appears, slashes Henry's throat, and lets his body vanish before anyone can see his immortality. Adam warns Henry, sooner or later, he'll kill too. The next case begins with a lavish wedding in the works for Viscount Colin Cavendish and his American fiancée, Emily. But when Colin's body turns up in Central Park, Henry quickly learns there's no such Viscount. This man was an imposter. Blonde roots show beneath dyed hair, gravel clings to his wounds, and his accent and tailoring point to an American with a taste for high living. Henry and Joe trace him back to his real identity, Dwight, a bike messenger from Oklahoma who vanished a year earlier. In his pocket, Lucas finds a shredded $1 million check from Emily's father, Norman. When Norman slips and mentions Dwight's hometown, information never released, Henry knows he's hiding something. A scrap of Dwight's suit on Norman's wall suggests a violent confrontation between them. Norman's golf club matches one of Dwight's wounds, and under questioning, his lawyer admits Norman struck Dwight at home but insists he wasn't the one who stabbed him later in the park. The statement reveals Dwight had confessed his con to Norman and planned to tell Emily the truth, even hoping to run away with her if she still wanted him. Norman has an alibi for the actual time of death. Back at the morgue, Henry takes another look at Dwight's injuries and notices the head wound had been treated, something a rural boy from Oklahoma couldn't have arranged on his own. Tracing Dwight's expensive clothes to a store catalog, Henry spots a gold pen and theorizes it's the murder weapon. Investigators discover Dwight had been using Patricia's employee discount, and when they search her apartment, they find etiquette manuals, a bloodstained cloth, and a photo of Dwight before his Lord transformation. The pieces fit. Patricia was training and dating Dwight as part of the scam, but when he genuinely fell for Emily and tore up the payoff check, Patricia killed him. Patricia disappears as the investigation heats up, her face plastered on wanted posters. Henry spots her lurking at Dwight's funeral and follows her with Abe until Joe arrives to make the arrest. In interrogation, Patricia swears she's innocent, saying Dwight ended their relationship and planned to confess to Emily the night he died, at the exact spot in Central Park where he proposed. A reenactment proves Emily couldn't have physically committed the murder, but someone clearly killed Dwight to keep her around. The police set a trap, arresting Emily to draw out the real killer. That night, Norman's lawyer returns to the park to dig up the gold pen, only to be surrounded and arrested. His motive? He was in love with Emily and wanted Dwight out of the way. Later, Henry and Joe gently tell Emily that Dwight truly loved her, pointing to the torn check as proof he didn't care about the money. But Henry's relief is short-lived. On his cab ride home, he realizes the driver is Adam, his immortal stalker. Adam has killed the real cabbie, stolen the taxi, and drives wildly through the city to prove his immortality, ultimately shooting himself as the car plunges into the river. Henry drowns trying to escape, reawakens naked in the water, and is promptly arrested. At the station, Joe demands an explanation, but Henry brushes it off as sleepwalking. When the taxi driver's body is found with a single sword wound, Henry confides in Abe, who urges him to tell Joe about Adam, but memories of a past betrayal, when a wife had him locked in an asylum, keep him silent. Police recover the sunken cab and find an antique bullet casing, while Joe recovers Henry's watch. That night, Henry and Abe search the river for Adam's gun but are caught by police. Joe warns Henry he may need therapy, prompting him to finally see Dr. Lewis, who encourages him to build a circle of trust. The next day, police trace the gun to an apartment, where they find the owner dead, autopsied alive with the same precision Henry uses. Rushing home, Henry finds his own hunting knife bloodstained. Before he can decide whether to flee or confess, Joe arrives and sees the weapon. Henry spins a partial truth. He has a deranged stalker who thinks he's immortal, and he planned to leave town to make it stop. Joe points out he was with Lewis during the murder, clearing him. Further investigation reveals both victims had worked at the same psychiatric hospital and had once fought with a patient named Clark, a violent man with no fear of death, often caught swimming naked in rivers. Lewis helps obtain Clark's file, but Clark escapes before the building can be locked down. That night, Henry finds him waiting in the basement, begging Henry to end it with a katana. When Abe walks in, Clark attacks, sparking a brutal fight. Henry ultimately kills Clark in self-defense, realizing he was not Adam. Moments later, Adam calls, explaining he manipulated Clark to believe killing Henry could transfer immortality. Then Adam delivers his final twist. He's been Lewis all along. From the street below, Henry watches in shock as Adam slips into a cab and disappears into the night.